Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into a pretty influential book. It's called The Imitation of Christ by Thomas à Kempis.
And it's a 15th century text.
Yeah, 15th century, so we're going way back. But we're going to look at how it connects to, well, life today.
You know, even for people who aren't particularly religious.
Right. Like, why does this book still matter in the modern world?
Exactly.
And we have a couple of things to help us make sense of it all.
We have some excerpts from the original 1886 translation.
Oh, cool.
And a more modern guide to kind of walk us through the main ideas.
So like a modern interpretation.
Exactly. And what I find so fascinating about The Imitation of Christ is that it's not just some, dusty old book.
Right.
It's really a practical guide to inner transformation.
Inner transformation.
Yeah, it's all about aligning our thoughts, desires, actions, all of that with God's will.
So like becoming more Christ-like?
Exactly. It's about cultivating those virtues.
I see. And that's probably why it still speaks to people centuries later, right?
Absolutely. I mean, who doesn't want to become a better person?
Right. Makes sense. The modern guide we have, it really emphasizes this idea of inner transformation. Like it's the key to spiritual growth.
Yeah.
And then when I was reading Kempis in Book 2, Chapter 4, he talks about the importance of, a pure mind and a simple intention.
Oh, that's a good one.
It seems like those ideas, they go together, inner transformation and this pure mind, simple intention.
They definitely do. When Kempis says pure mind, he's talking about a mind that's focused on God, not all the distractions, the drama of the world, not all the ego stuff.
Yeah.
And then simple intention, that means you're acting for the good of others.
Not just for yourself.
Exactly. Not for personal gain or recognition or any of that.
It's like the opposite of how we're often told to live today, right? Put yourself first, climb that ladder.
It is. It's a radical idea, even now.
It makes sense to me, but how do you actually live that way? Especially in like today's world, it's so competitive.
That's the key question.
How do you reconcile those demands?
It's not about becoming passive.
Okay.
Or denying your ambitions.
Okay.
But it is about shifting your focus. Imagine, say you're at work, facing a tough decision.
Okay.
Kempis would say, don't just think about what benefits you.
Okay.
Think about what's just. How can you serve others?
With this decision.
Yeah. Even in small ways, how can you use your position, your talents to make a positive impact?
So it's not about denying ambition.
No.
But like aiming it towards something bigger.
Yes, exactly. It's about finding that place where your work, it becomes an expression of something deeper, more meaningful than just the accolades.
Okay, I see. So that's one part of it. But Kempis also talks a lot about humility.
Oh, yes.
And in Book 1, Chapter 2, he says we should see ourselves as, well, this is a tough one, vile in our own sight.
Right.
And then later in Book 2, Chapter 6, he says to boast only in God. I mean, how is that even possible in today's world?
It's definitely a challenge. Everywhere we look, it's like promote yourself, build your brand.
Exactly.
But when Kempis says vile, it's not about self-hatred.
I was wondering about that.
It's about having an honest look at yourself,
Okay.
at your ego, at your flaws.
Like being self-aware.
Yeah. And when you can do that, you're free from needing all that validation.
So it's more about mindfulness.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in that space, in that humility, that's where you can really open yourself to God's grace.
I see. But how do you put that into practice? Like, let's say on social media.
Oh, social media, that's a good one.
How can you avoid that trap of self-promotion?
Think about it this way. What if, instead of using it to broadcast all your achievements,
Right.
you use it to amplify voices that don't get heard enough?
Oh, that's a cool idea.
Or to promote causes you really believe in?
I like that. But honestly, is it possible to really detach from that desire for validation online?
It's tough. It takes constant awareness. You have to keep asking yourself, what am I doing this for? Is this about me or is it about making a difference?
It's about checking your intentions.
Exactly. Making sure they line up with your values.
It's amazing to me, that a book this old can still feel so relevant.
It really is. And you know what else is amazing?
What's that?
The fact that the imitation of Christ, it speaks to people across generations.
You mean like it's not just for people in the 15th century?
Exactly. It still resonates with people today, even, people who aren't necessarily religious.
Why do you think that is? What gives it that staying power?
Well, I think it's because, like we've been talking about, Kempis, he deals with these really universal struggles.
What do you mean?
things like temptation, suffering, the big questions.
Like the meaning of life.
Exactly. And he gives you these timeless ways to deal with them.
So it's not just like a history lesson.
No, not at all. It's about inner work. It's about going deep.
He doesn't offer any quick fixes?
Not at all. Like when he talks about embracing what is it?
The royal way of the Holy Cross.
Yes. That's in book 2, chapter 12.
Right.
He's saying that going through tough times, suffering, that can actually lead you to spiritual growth.
It's like the challenges make you stronger.
Exactly. It's a tough idea, for sure. But it makes sense to a lot of people, especially people who are going through hard times.
It's kind of like you find meaning in the struggle.
Yeah. Growth comes from facing things head on, not just avoiding them.
Kempis is really honest about how hard the spiritual journey can be.
Yeah, he doesn't sugarcoat anything. And I think that's part of why people still connect with the book.
It feels real.
Exactly. It offers a path to a more authentic life, not by saying it's going to be easy.
But by being upfront about the challenges.
Yes, and it gives you the tools to get through them.
So this idea of inner transformation,
right?
It's not about being comfortable.
No.
It's about growth.
Exactly.
It makes me wonder, though, how a book like this will keep being relevant in the future.
In the future?
Yeah, like the world's becoming so globalized, so digital.
It's a good question. How do you make something like this, with all its focus on contemplation? How do you make that connect with people who are constantly bombarded with information?
It's like we need a way to condense it.
Condense?
Make it bite-sized. What if there was an app or something?
An app for the Imitation of Christ.
Yeah, imagine you could get these short, powerful little reflections from the book.
Yeah.
But tailored to everyday life.
I see.
We could use Kempis' own words, maybe even add some visuals or music.
Interesting.
Just something to bring a little peace into people's busy lives.
I can see that. It could be a really powerful way to introduce people to Kempis.
Right. Imagine you're stressed out, you have a million things to do, you open the app, and you get this quote about finding peace in God's will.
Yeah.
Or a reminder about humility. In a world that's all about striving for more.
I get it. It would be a way to reconnect with those values we've been talking about.
The tricky part would be, how do you make it engaging?
And how do you keep the depth of Kempis's message? It can't just be, surface level.
I know, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
But hey, the Imitation of Christ has survived for centuries.
That's true.
It's found a way to speak to people across cultures, across time.
Right.
Why not in the digital world, too?
It's a testament to how powerful these ideas are. That they can still resonate even in a world so different from, when they were first written.
It shows you that the search for meaning, it's timeless. It's something we all deal with.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes the Imitation of Christ so powerful, so enduring.
It speaks to something deep within us, something we all share. As we wrap up our deep dive into the Imitation of Christ, I'm curious what really resonated with you from this text. What are you taking away from this conversation?
I think for me, it's that reminder that real peace, real fulfillment, it doesn't come from, outside stuff. It comes from inside.
From inner transformation.
Yes. It's about that connection with God, aligning yourself with his will.
It's something we can all try to do, no matter what our circumstances are or our beliefs.
It is. It's a journey.
Not a destination.
Right. And it takes work. You have to constantly be checking yourself, your motives, and be willing to grow.
Just like Kempis said, it's a journey worth taking.
Definitely.
Well, I think that's a great place to leave it. But before we go, I want to leave you with a thought.
Okay.
If Kempis were writing today, with all the social media, the smartphones, how would he adapt his message? What would Imitation of Christ practices look like online? It's something to think about as we navigate this, modern world.
That's a really interesting question. And I think it's one we're all going to be wrestling with more and more as things get even more digital.
Right.
It's more important than ever to figure out how to find that inner peace, how to connect with something bigger than ourselves, and how to use these platforms for good.
And maybe Kempis can help us with that.
Maybe so.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the Imitation of Christ. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep searching for what truly matters.